This is ready. So that works. All right, and folks, we're here. Gosh, this is this week with the NRBC. I'm your host, Sherman Ray, and we've got in studio today candidate for Metropolitan. How do you want to put that? Sheriff of Park County, Tim Bedwell. So, Tim, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what Tim's plans are for the city. So, folks, if you see our eyes looking around, this is very strange because we're doing some neat new things here. We've got, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna do something real quick here, folks. I got a camera where I'm seeing some weird stuff here, so I'm gonna move that over that way just a little bit more, and I think that'll work. Okay, so we've got some interesting things going on today. We've got cameras everywhere, folks. So if you see us jumping through hoops, it's not because we're fidgety. It's just because they've got a lot of, maybe. We just got a lot of stuff going on. I don't know. And so Tim and I have been trying to get to know each other a little bit. For those of you, this might be your first time seeing, Tim has been on TV in Las Vegas for I don't know how long. It's probably been 16 years. 16 years. And you are actually the information guy, communications guy. You were actually the face of North Las Vegas for a long time.
Right, I became a police officer in 2001, and then not long after I started in North Las Vegas Police Department, I became the public information officer.
Yeah, so that's very cool. So when I got an opportunity to interview, I said, gosh, it's like I knew you. I've seen you a long time, so it's very cool. So today we're going to talk a little bit about your past and really what you're thinking about doing in the future, because Las Vegas is a town in transition. We've seen a lot of ups and downs since October 1 happened. We've seen, gosh, I just don't know, so much emotion in the air in the city. So we need something to hold us together. So I'm really excited about that. So let's get started. Tim, I've got these questions here. So let's talk. Now, I was doing research on and that you actually moved here, but how long have you been in Las Vegas? And then where'd you come from?
I came here from Arizona. I was a police officer in Arizona when I retired from the Marine Corps. I became a police officer in Arizona, and I was there for 6 years before I came over to North Las Vegas in 2001.
In 2001, oh, great. So Vegas is a different animal.
It is much different.
Yeah. So what was the biggest difference that you saw when you came to Las Vegas, coming from Arizona?
If I lay the foundation for why I came here, that might help. So I retired from the Marine Corps in Yuma, Arizona. 2 years before I retired, I became a Yuma County Sheriff's Deputy, Reserve Deputy. And so I cut my teeth in public safety in southwest Arizona, right where the border of Mexico and California are. A lot of drug war going on there in the mid-90s. Very exciting place. But as a detective in the sheriff's department there, I was making $12 and some change an hour.
Wow.
So while I wanted to contribute, I still needed to make a decent wage. So I lateraled up to a Phoenix suburb, and I worked there for 3 more years, but I was really bored. So I needed to find a balance between it. I needed to go somewhere where I felt that we were really truly needed and I could make a difference in the community, but I wanted to also make a decent wage. So I came to North Las Vegas. They hired me off my resume, and that's where I've been ever since. I did one ride along before I ended up on television. Interestingly enough, I ended up on television that night at a murder scene.
Oh my God!
So I guess that was sort of a foretelling of one.
Yeah. So welcome to Vegas. Murder, you're on TV.
Right.
That's it. That's awesome. So let me ask you, you were saying that you're right on the border.
Right.
And I think it's kind of time that I really didn't want to jump forward that quickly with this, but since we're there already, border town, a lot of immigration issues. Did you see what you saw then? Was that maybe a foretelling of what we see now? Has this been something that's been going on, or do you see much of a shift?
Well, it's interesting when you work in law enforcement near the border with Mexico, because there are some things that are just done differently. One thing, as a deputy sheriff in the county, my backup was usually a border patrol officer, simply because of the fact that we were spread so thin. I mean, literally at midnight, on the county roads, I was the only police officer. So if I stopped someone that had a felony warrant or something, I had to wait until the border patrol officer showed up. Well, it also put us in contact with people who were coyotes that were running people who were trying to migrate here and weren't doing it legally. We ended up with those people sometimes. And I will say that, this is an issue that has divided the country for decades now. And this was probably more the leading edge of that. The 80s, the 90s was when it really started to become, I think, a national issue. And has been ever since. But I don't know if there's been a lot of changes since then. There certainly were not as many border patrol officers as there are now. But we went through the phase where they had, guard and reserve troops that were coming to the border. So I've seen this firsthand, right on what you call like the leading edge of that battle.
Yeah, so it's not that big of a change to see the border patrol, to see the reserves actually working together with the local law enforcement to try to guard our border.
Right. And there it wasn't unusual. Yeah. You don't see that obviously here. Even when I moved up to Phoenix, it wasn't prevalent there, because when you're within 30 miles of the border, things are quite a bit different.
Yeah. Well, folks, we've jumped forward really quickly here, but I saw this was because it's so timely. I mean, it really is a timely thing that we're working. And you're in law enforcement.
I get asked about it all the time.
Do you?
I get asked, and I'm in a nonpartisan race, so I get asked about it by people who are for opening up for immigration and for people who are shutting down. So, as the sheriff, I have to give my answer, which is always the same. But it is a very common topic that comes up all the time, everywhere I go.
Yeah, that would be. But let's back up a little bit, folks, because I know we got to get really quick here. For those of you who are just joining us right now, this is This Week with the NRBC. We are featuring today Tim Bedwell, and he's running for the Clark County Sheriff's position, running up against the incumbent. We won't even talk about him right now, just because that's somebody else. So we'll talk about him a little later. But we want to get to know Tim a little bit more. If you've got any questions that you'd like to ask, we've got kind of a weird thing here. Normally we could answer your questions pretty quickly via Facebook Live, but I don't think we're going to be able to answer those as quickly, but we will get back to them possibly after the show. So we just got a lot of things that are going on today. But Tim, you brought your lovely wife here today. So tell us a little bit about your wife. And you guys, I wish we could turn the camera here, and but we can't right now. But
Michelle's shaking her head.
No, she's and so tell us a little bit about how you met and been married for a little bit now.
Right. Yeah. Interestingly, Michelle and I met on an airplane. Yeah. And my wife Michelle has a marketing company. She didn't recognize me right away.
What?
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Is that what you said to me?
I did. Yeah. Hey, do you know who I am? No, but the thing was, at the time, because of the responsibilities I had in law enforcement, I was getting on all planes first. And Michelle had her first A1 boarding pass for Southwest Airlines, and everybody that's flown Southwest knows what it is.
She was out there.
So she had her A1 boarding pass, and for some reason, this guy just kind of walked on and got on the plane ahead of her. She became on a mission there to find out who I was and try to make my flight uncomfortable, I think.
Is that what it was?
So I always used to sit in A1, and she came in and sat in C, which is the aisle seat. So you're tapping with fingers. Yeah, and definitely we started talking, and we interestingly enough, we ran into each other on airplanes 2 more times, relatively, within 2 weeks, a couple of months.
Yes.
I was traveling to Reno at the time every weekend because I was working in Carson City at the legislative session as a lobbyist. So I met Michelle there, and I was fortunate enough that after a while I was able to win her over.
Nice.
So we have a big family. We have 5 children, 4 grandchildren, another woman, 6 children. 6 children.
Yes, you know that. Sure. It was getting there.
so it's around our house.
Very cool. So, and so you've been married just about 40, so you've got a blended family.
Right.
And so, has that been a challenge? So, or how the kids accept it?
You know, I don't think so. She's wonderful, so I don't. She's immediately, you know, well received, and she's way better in birthdays and things like that than I am now.
Yeah.
But I don't know how I am. I just got asked for that.
Yeah.
I think we did okay though.
Yeah. Well, good.
My granddaughter loves me, so that's all that matters.
That's all that really matters. That's all, because when you come home, as long as you get a big hug from her, you're good.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, what got you into law enforcement? I mean, was it something you saw? I know you said that you were in the Marines, and but going into the Marines and then going into law enforcement, was there a natural transition there, or was it something that you said, you know what, I want to get into law enforcement at some point in life? So what was the thinking on it?
I might have had thoughts of it for a long time, but I didn't join the Marine Corps to become an MP or anything like that. I joined the Marine Corps and had really good test scores, so they made me an avionics technician. I worked on airplanes. I worked on the weapons navigation system, computers in airplanes. This was in the mid-70s, mid-late 70s. But in the mid-80s, I went to work at U.S. Embassies. And so the training that you have as a Marine is much different than the training you have as a law enforcement officer. But when I went on embassy duty, you have the same training in a lot of respects that you have as a police officer, because the responsibility is I was in charge of security admits, which obviously you can't have a combat mentality in that. You have more of a protective, mentality. So I did that for 5 years, and when I left there, it was the early 90s, and I think I was probably primed for that. I had a corporal that worked for me when I was an operations chief, who became a sheriff's reserve, and when he did that, he talked me into it too. Young man, and I think I owe a lot of that to him. Yeah, because he really kind of convinced me that policing, most people join policing, quite frankly, when they're mid-20s.
Sure, yeah.
Here I was 37, and he convinced me that it was a place that you go in at that age, have a real background of personal life before, and you can actually use as an advantage. Yeah. Because a lot of times young men don't have a lot of life experience, and then they get out and they start making arrest decisions and things like that. It's really good to have people around you to mentor you when you're that age, to let you know that it's not just all about taking everybody to jail all the time. It's sometimes about helping people with problems. Sure.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because we went to a forum yesterday. There was an assemblyman who was had a lot of people in the meeting. So I'm trying to start my something's happening.
Yeah, we have questions.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, you're ready. If you don't want, I'll take that over.
Okay.
So we've already got questions too. So, here it is. So this one's from Heather. Oh wow! Now this is going to be a surprise to you. Heather, say your last name. It's Rasvin, and your question is, Tim, what's your stance on the Second Amendment, background checks on private property sales of firearms? So that's our first question.
So I'm a proponent of the Second Amendment. I swore to uphold and defend the Constitution for the first time when I was 17 years old in Marine Corps boot camp. When I swore to defend the Constitution, that means the Constitution, all of the Bill of Rights and everything else, all of the amendments that make up the Constitution as we know it. I don't believe right now that there are any new gun laws that would really make anyone any safer in Nevada. The gun laws we have right now should be enforced more. I know there have been attempts made to try to make it harder for a person with a mental health problem. Make it harder for them to obtain a firearm legally. Of course, we can't stop people from obtaining firearms illegally. We can try, but that's not going to happen. So, if the gun registration, or excuse me, the bills that have come forth so far that have to do with transfers really don't address properly the thing that they are set out to do. We Because if you look at the legislative intent in the record, you'll find that they're looking at stopping certain classes of people or certain people who have particularly mental health problems from obtaining a firearm. The problem with that is that there isn't currently a way for those people to put into the system to where they would be stopped, even if they did have to make a transfer for a firearm. Now, I will say this: I'm not completely opposed to the thought of a true transfer, a sale of a weapon being done with a legitimate background check in the same fashion that you go into the store. However, what I do feel is that there's a difficulty crafting a law that allows that to be done and doesn't violate someone's rights. For example, if you wanted to loan your firearm. So ultimately this, I would rather err on the side of caution when it comes to transfers, particularly until we have something in place to actually prevent people who have a mental health problem from obtaining a firearm, which is already illegal. When you go to purchase a firearm, you have to fill out the form and you have to check the block. If you check that block and say you don't have a mental health problem when you know you do, that's against the law. Quite frankly, it isn't ever prosecuted.
Yes.
So why do we need more laws? So let's circle back to the beginning. I don't believe in any way that hindering a person's lawful ownership of a firearm, a person who isn't out to hurt anyone, I don't see any way that new firearms laws is going to help anyone. And it would hurt your right if you were the person. So I'm not for bans of AR-15 or semi-automatic weapons. I don't believe in the lower the body count idea by having smaller capacity magazines, which truly don't lower the body count anyway. But as a law enforcement professional, in public safety, my goal is to not have the incident, rather than trying to force a person to choose a different weapon, or to maybe have to take two weapons because you limited their magazine.
Yeah,
What do you think logically about
yeah, that's interesting too, because this is probably the biggest debates right now, whether or not we should infringe on people's Second Amendment rights, especially now in Florida. We had a shooting in Florida just a little while back, and now the governor of Florida has basically said that we're eliminating whole classes of firearms. And the argument was now, let's say you're a young woman, you're 18 years of age, the first time you're leaving home, you're now in a college dorm, and you can't buy a gun to protect yourself because now they've changed the age limit, I believe. And why should you penalize people who are lawful-abiding citizens just because of the sins of people of others? So it's refreshing to hear a law enforcement official, a law enforcement professional, say that there's some issues with that.
Right. Well, you know what? Here's one of the things that people tell me is these are very complex issues. Mm-hmm. And so we sit down and we have a minute or so to discuss this one topic. And I sometimes get into the complexities of it. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure everyone knows very clearly in answer to Heather's question. I won't support any gun law that is going to change your right now in Nevada to own a firearm, whether it is a limitation on anything other than, and I do have to say this, I'm not a proponent of bump stocks. I think they're a novelty, and I don't really have a position either way with whether they should be legal. However, magazine capacity is something that you have a right to, and I will protect those rights.
And thank you so much for your approach, Joe. Yeah, we're just kind of running around. We've got all kinds of things, and I've got a camera that looks like it's down over here, but it's all right because folks. We are this week with the NRBC. I'm your host Sherman Ray. We are on Facebook Live right now. We're also on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube and you'd like to watch us live, we have a YouTube channel which is NBGOP Black Caucus. So we've got that page up. We've got your Facebook page. We really encourage you, if you've got a question, go ahead and ask it, because we've got another phone in here now. We can actually answer some of your questions. In the studio today, we have Tim Bedwell. He's the candidate for Clark County Sheriff. So getting to know them a little bit more, which is real cool. For those of you who recognize this space, this is actually the face of North Las Vegas for many, many years. And so we're some of this familiarity already, right? Which is very cool. You were quoted in a newspaper that was saying that you wanted to, and we were talking about school shootings and the Clark County School District, about maybe looking at absorbing school safety personnel, especially those, and I would assume that would be anybody who's armed or somebody who's protecting children, that you wanted to absorb them into Metro. So let's talk a little bit about that. What's your thinking behind that? And specifically, do you think that that's going to help? Because right now the argument now is we don't want to, many people are saying, we don't want to arm school teachers, we don't want, they're not professionals. Some people have said, hey, let's get old guys who are retired, let's give them a gun and just bring them in schools. But this is a novel idea here that you're saying that maybe we should actually have metro officers. Or so what is your thought on that? What do you think that means?
So there's three parts to my plan. It is a complex thing, but I'm going to try to boil it down to the smallest part. The why. We can't wait until our babies are killed in school before we decide to do something about this problem here in town. We learned October 1st that we're not immune to this kind of thing, and it's happened too many times across the country. So that's the why. I can do something right now. As sheriff, I can use the resources that the police department has, and I can distribute them in a way to make schools safer right now. I don't have to go to the legislature and ask for anything. I don't have to ask any for more money. Over time, we're going to have to grow into that. But right now, there's a need. You know, there's only 96 positions for full-time police officers in schools in Clark County. They're all 2 officers apiece at high schools. And there's 20 of those positions that are open. 20 of those high schools that are supposed to have 1 police officer don't have any. No junior high or elementary school has a police officer. So here's the plan. I put a police officer assigned to every school. And that police officer isn't just a person. And I want to deviate a little bit from the idea of having them teach classes. They're not teachers. Our job is protecting the school. I want them to be seen by the children that go to school as their protectors. We're not there to look at the cigarettes in the locker room. We're not there to break up cat fights between boys, girls, or any combination. We're there to keep the school safe. Those officers would be there as much as possible when the school is opening, at the front of the school, where we would bring everybody in. They would be able to respond to the school immediately, know the school well, know not every one of the teachers, but know the administration, have people there that they converse with. And if you call the police, and this is a pivotal part that I got from educators, if they call the police, they don't want to get a runaround about who has jurisdiction. Sure. I can assure you, everywhere in the county, in Clark County, the sheriff has jurisdiction. If there's a problem in the school, I want it to be responded to by the agency best to respond. So there's 3 parts to my plan. Have those officers there, move communication to under Metro, and then the last and probably the most important part of this is I will put an investigative team inside the Fusion Center with access to all of the resources the Fusion Center has.
So explain us what the Fusion Center is.
The Fusion Center is the unit, for lack of a better term. It's a multi-agency unit at Metro that works with the federal government to bring all of the intelligence gathering, and if there are threats, to send out detectives to investigate those threats, to protect Clark County as a whole. I want a small piece of that pie to be dedicated solely to our schools. When they go to school every day, if a kid that is there makes a threat, rather than those red flags all be seen after something like Parkland happens, or Sandy Hook, when we say, "Why? How did we miss this?" Well, we missed it because we didn't have professional investigators look into the red flags. Sure. They're talking about it in Parkland now. There's going to be a trial, and through that trial, we're going to find out all the red flags. And what we're going to recognize is that young man should have never been able to walk into a gun store and buy a gun, which he did illegally because he had a mental health issue. It was already against the law firm. So changing the law in Florida is not going to change that at all because it didn't stop that then. So my plan isn't to try to stop people from getting guns, which we know predominantly affects law-abiding people who should be allowed to have their firearms and have the Second Amendment of the Constitution. What we do need to do is have something in place that will actually do something. Not just talk a lot, not just wave around and say, I'm going to ban semi-automatic weapons, which you and I know isn't going to change the safety of our children.
It seems to me like that's more of a knee-jerk reaction. It's kind of like every time something happens, it's like just ban all the guns. It's like and people who want to get guns unlawfully are going to get them anyways. Yeah. People who want to commit crimes are going to get those anyways. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to people who are Second Amendment rights people to say, take away my guns, and I didn't do anything wrong.
Honestly, it doesn't even make sense to people who are opposed to gun ownership if you actually sit down and talk about the facts. Yeah. I've done this many times. I've spoken to educators. I've spoken to the school police administration. I've done everything I can to do my homework on this. It's a complex issue that I can't get deeply into. There's people out there that are going, where's going to get the money and where's going to... I've looked at this, and we can make the schools safer the day I take office.
Yeah. And so how come nobody's thought of this before?
Well, we haven't brought my opponent up yet, so I will.
Yeah.
When the story went out, and quite frankly, my goal wasn't absorbing the school police. My goal is to have, and 4 years at the end of my term, I don't care whether they're wearing brown uniforms, blue uniforms, whether they're part of Metro or the school district has gotten more money and more resources to have their own better equipped police force. That's not my goal. My goal is to make the school safer right now. This is a 9/11 issue. So let me ask you this. When after 9/11, did the federal government wait to see how long it would take to make it safer to hijack an airplane? No.
Yeah.
We put the National Guard in. Well, here's the difference here. This is a local problem, and we need to address it with local funds and local people. But I don't in the long run want to absorb the school police. In the long run, I just want to see everybody safe.
Sure. I think we've got a question or two, so let's take a look at this one. And this is Diana W. DBYA. We see countless violations of citizens' rights during interactions, and thank you for the thumbs up there. We see countless violations of citizens' rights during interactions with law enforcement across the country, and particularly in Clark County. What's your position on due process, and what will you do to ensure Metro officers are not violated? And this really kind of goes back to a question that we had last night at a round table. That in the African American community, how it seems like there is an undue attention, paid to African Americans. So the question is, what will you do in your position on due process?
First of all, let me just say, it's my belief. I've worked in this valley since 2001, and it's my belief that the police officers and corrections officers and staff at the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, by a vast, overwhelming majority, want to do the right thing. They join the police department to protect people. My concern nationally with law enforcement is this. Police officers have been targeted. They've been targeted right here in Las Vegas and murdered simply because they were police officers. So what's the outgrowth of this is a certain degree of warrior mentality in the police culture. That warrior mentality is detrimental both to the people we serve and to us, because it serves to be an aggravating factor as well. My goal is to make sure that we're not going down that track with our police officers with regard to the warrior mentality, and particularly in the Black community. There is friction in the Black community and has been forever. It grows from the way this country was formed and evolved. It goes all the way back to slavery. But the problems today, particularly in neighborhoods, let's say, that are predominantly black in the Las Vegas Valley. We need to give you in that neighborhood the policing that you ask for, not the policing that we sit up and tell you you have to have, or that my expertise in criminal justice background says is what you need. So throw that down your throat. I'm going to give you an example. People on the street maybe see a bunch of young men in their early 20s, late teens, and maybe feel like they're threatened by standing in the road when they're trying to drive through or whatever. And they'll call us. And we come out. It's not my belief that the people, and I know this for a fact because I've answered these questions as a police supervisor, manager. When people make that call, they don't expect us to come and jerk their young men up and take them to jail for silly misdemeanors. When in fact we wouldn't do the same thing up in Summerlin if that group of young men was mixed or was white. So that causes a great degree of friction, and that hurts the reputation of the police department. 3 years ago, I think we had a much better relationship in those communities, and I say that because that's what the people there tell me, and that's what police officers in the Metro also tell me, because the focus has changed. I want to go back to seeing police officers as public safety officers. You're there to protect people. Law enforcement is an element of that, but it's not the main goal. And I'm not impressed when a police officer makes a bunch of misdemeanor arrests, because that's not good for any of us.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of like a zealous, and a zealous cop. Somebody who's probably just, I don't know, maybe even bold. I don't know how to say that, but the community. Let me go. I'm going to stem this just 1 minute. In Las Vegas, we don't have the same issues that they have in like Baltimore or in North Carolina or even in the South. Have you seen an uptick in tension between the police and the community, whether it be the black community or the any community, in the last 3 years, 4 years?
The good news is that people tell me that we're still not seen as the occupying force that we were a couple of decades ago. The bad news is that people tell me we're sliding away and losing ground from where we were. Now, on your point about the police officer, the individual police officer, what really rolls into a police officer's thinking as they're on patrol at night or during the day is peer pressure and command culture. If the push is this broken window theory kind of operation where anybody that breaks the law goes to jail, then that's the power that a police officer is going to weigh. That's going to weigh on that police officer all day. It's going to weigh at the end of the year when they sit down with the supervisor and are told how they did. If misdemeanor arrests are a big part of that, but you really need to up your. You should arrest more people.
That's interesting.
Then that police officer's going to go do.
Sure.
Some might push back, but the reality of it is, as a culture, we need to stop it. Bear with me just for a minute. This is what's really interesting about Nevada. Everything in Nevada is a mystery. Everything in Nevada is mystery. Okay, if you jaywalk, it's a mystery. Yes. If you ride your bicycle on the sidewalk, it's a mystery. All of these things are criminal, but they're not so in California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Idaho, New Mexico. I could go on.
Yes.
States west of the Mississippi River, most minor infractions are called civil violations or petty offenses. And the sanction for those is a ticket and a possible fine, not an arrest. So we empower in Nevada police officers with the power to arrest people for things that you cannot arrest for in the states that surround us. It's my opinion that we shouldn't be making arrests for those things, unless it's a situation that is extremely called for in the circumstances. But in the most part, we shouldn't be filling our jails with people who were jaywalking. Because ultimately, why do we arrest a person for jaywalking? To protect themselves. Really? So why don't we protect them by giving them a ticket and sending them on their way? Because they're not going to stay in jail anyway. But we might have just cost them their job, their apartment, if they're in a crime-free apartment complex, custody of their child, if they can get home that night. So we create problems for people in Nevada that we don't have to. And it isn't done in the other states that surround us.
So Tim, that kind of philosophy, and it's almost like a kinder, gentler, but not, we're not saying permissive, but a kinder, gentler.
And you know what's good about it?
Yeah.
What's good about it is that we have more room for people who do things that truly are bad, are detrimental to the community, and are hurtful. People who fight or beat their wife or beat their husband or beat their child in a misdemeanor way, there's room for them in jail, and a judge doesn't feel like they have to OR them, release them on recognizance after a day or two. Because quite frankly, let's look at this realistically. When you arrest somebody for a misdemeanor like that, they're coming back. Right now, they're coming back overwhelmingly so because the jail is full. So let's loosen that up and actually be tougher on crime, not tougher on little misdemeanors that aren't even a crime in most states.
Good. Well, thank you, Tim. We've got another question here. And for those of you who are just joining us right now, this is This Week with the NRBC. I'm your host, Sherman Rain. And in studio today, we've got Tim Bedwell. He's running for Clark County Sheriff. We've been taking questions, and we've got a question here from Jason Polk. What's the number one issue that you see that needs to change, and how would you fix the issue? So I guess, Jason, what you're asking for is citywide, or is that countywide, or is that within Metro?
Well, let's answer this first of all. Find what is under Metro. The sheriff's responsibility is the sheriff everywhere in Clark County, to everyone. Even if you have a police chief in North Las Vegas or Henderson, the sheriff is still the sheriff. The sheriff's responsibility for public safety extends to everyone in the county. So what do I believe is the worst problem that needs to be addressed right away? Metro has a crisis of credibility right now. That crisis of credibility has to do with its ability to interact with the community. And it is nowhere is it more prevalent right now than with the 1 October shooting. We saw just today, the sheriff has said he will begin releasing information that he was ordered to release two courts ago. Judge Miley told him to release it, or excuse me, Judge Scotty first told him to release the information. Judge Miley told him to release the information. It went to the Nevada Supreme Court and was told him to release the information. Information that the sheriff should know the instant that this investigation started, that one day he would have to release because that's the law. What it has caused is people are starting to say to me that they don't trust Metro. When someone looks at me and says, we don't trust Metro, I say to them, stop. This isn't about Metro. This is about the current administration's preference to fight the law on an issue, even fight the judges who are ordering them to follow the law. This isn't about police officers at Metro. It's not about staff at Metro. It's not about people who run the jail. They're doing their jobs. To get the credibility back, the first absolute thing we need to do is release the information, release the body cam. The sheriff said today that they were going to release body cams in a specific fashion over time to keep you from drawing incorrect conclusions. I have a problem with the wording of that because you, the public, have the right to look at these public records that you own and draw whatever conclusions you want. There shouldn't be an orchestrated effort to put these out in a certain way to drive the narrative. And you know what I think that does? It makes Metro look less trustworthy, less transparent, and less accountable because people now are saying, what are they covering up? I don't know that they're covering anything up, but people believe there may be, and we need to put a stop to that. I'll tell you this, if I were sheriff today, you would have seen these records soon after the shooting. And if we look at other places where we've had mass shootings, much of the information comes out within a week or two. And then the other comes out as we can process it, make sure we're not breaking that it doesn't affect a criminal prosecution, we don't violate anybody's privacy rights. I understand all this. As you mentioned before, I spent over a decade with public information, police information. And I'll just throw this, my master's degree in criminal justice organizational management. My master's thesis was on police media relations. Understand
So getting the word out, because you got to get that word out. Yeah.
Tell people what happened, make them feel safe again, because we're going to change things. Let them know that we're attacking the problems, but they can't know that we are if we're not even telling them what happened.
You know, this has been like this has been going on since, and the news media has been talking about this. If you watch Fox News, they've kind of cooled down on this quite a while ago. But this was one of the biggest things we were talking about. The largest shooting in U.S. history occurred, and based upon your detective background, because you're a detective before you came here to Las Vegas. So we're not here to slam the investigative, arm of our city. But did you see anything during the investigation that you said to yourself, "Oh my gosh, this is something I would have done differently"? And you don't have to get into specifics.
So I don't want a Monday morning quarterback things.
Yeah.
Would a reasonable police officer have done the same thing in the same circumstances? That's when I started going, oh, this is maybe a problem. The only thing that I have a question about, and I haven't seen all of the investigation more than any other person. The one thing that I've been concerned about is the time lag between when Metro police officers were on the 32nd floor and the time they actually entered the floor. You know, there was an accidental discharge that we weren't told about for a long time. That accidental discharge apparently took 3 rounds, which we weren't told about. The sheriff has said the sheriff actually said at a press conference that his officers had engaged the suspect and the suspect was currently dead. And then we find out that there wasn't an engagement, that he had already committed suicide. So I only give you that little bit of preface because I want you to understand it's a convoluted issue because we don't know what happened. Sure. But the time it took from when SWAT officers or a team of officers were ready to reach the door and go into the room until they actually did was lengthy. Somewhere between half an hour and an hour. As a former SWAT member of 2 different police departments, I can tell you this. It's really hard to hold people back, especially when they just murdered people and are still in a position from which they could murder people.
They want to get into that room.
They want to get into that room.
Sure.
And so the idea there is they're saying, well, it's more like a school shooting where there's a silence for a while, so we stop. There's a pause of the shooting, so the exigency stops. That's not true. The exigency doesn't stop, and the person could be reloading. Certainly, if more people had been shot while Metro was waiting, that would be a problem. Now, I wasn't there, and there might have been very good reason for them to wait. But we need to be told that. And if they were waiting because a commander somewhere else said, well, if there isn't any gunfire right now, you should wait, and for no other purpose, an officer on the end of the floor said, no, we should go now, but was overruled by a senior officer, that's a problem that should be addressed and there should be change.
Very interesting. Folks, if you're just joining us right now, this week with NRBC. We've got questions that are coming in. I can barely see the screen in front of me, so we do know. I did hear somebody say that our sound quality isn't what they thought it was going to be. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to do something really quick here because I can see why I think it's going on. So I'm going to do something really quick here, and let's see if that might have helped the situation just a little bit. Boy, so you guys all saw my belly on that one. So, Tim, we were saying that we were actually going to talk a little bit about you, because we talked a little bit about the October 1 shooting. There is something that happened to you in your life that shaped who you are. I really believe it was a child for you, and that might be mom and dad in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about your dad? Because I know that what I've read about you is about your mom working and then working at night. What about your dad? I mean, there's some things that he instilled in you that you think really created the Tim Bedwell we know now. And 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 what do you think that was?
Well, for background, my father was a Marine in World War II. He joined the Marine Corps in 1943 and was discharged in the late 45 or early 46. He took part in the battle for Okinawa. He was among the first to go into Nagasaki after the bomb was dropped. So my father had a very deep respect for where America stands for and what we enjoy as rights. I don't remember Dad ever really he didn't preach these things to me. He lived them. He believed everyone was equal. He believed in fair treatment. We never had money. We weren't well off at all when I was a kid. We moved a lot. My mother and my father both had to work. Even when I was third and fourth grade, I got myself off to school, and there was no one home when I came home. But I never felt like anything was missing. I look back on it and I remember that, and I never thought they weren't there for me. I never ever thought that they weren't. I just knew they were doing what they had to do to make a family and for us to eat and have a place to live. But my dad's belief in doing for the country, doing for others, actually really had a big impact on me. So, as I said, I actually went down to the Marine Recruiter's office 3.5 months after I turned 17. And because of what I got into, it was a while before I went to camp. But I was a young man, but it never even occurred to me to not join the military. Now, I didn't want to be a police officer. I didn't think about that kind of service at the time. But it absolutely changed and shaped who I am. I literally grew up to manhood as a Marine, in the Marine Corps, active duty Marine. And I did that a lot because I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I knew that they respected, service to the country, and that's really shaped who I am.
Yeah. I've interviewed quite a few people, and one of the things they talk about are their parents, are the people who raised them. And to a man, I've never interviewed anybody who said, you know what, I grew up in a lot of luxury, mom and dad showered me with all this great stuff. It was generally, there was an instilling of service to my country, service to my community, and that's why they're seeking office right now. You said something about that you traveled, and you did some traveling around, and you've been to Europe, you've been to Africa, Jamaica, where my family's from. And some of the values that you saw in abroad, contrast that to what you see here in the United States. Because I believe this is something that maybe people have not really gotten deep in their spirits yet. But I'd like you to say that in your own words. What kind of values do you see in Europe and what they're going through as opposed to here in the land of plenty that we just don't see?
Right. First of all, I got to warn you, if you're going to come on and be interviewed by Sherman, we didn't discuss any of this, so you clearly have gone back and looked at some of my literature on talking about my father's service or something. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So my first overseas post, I was the detachment commander of the embassy in Antananarivo, Madagascar. A place most people don't even know where it's at. It's in the Indian Ocean. It's 600 miles off the coast of Mozambique, between Africa, very close to Africa, on your way to Australia. Fourth largest island in the world. One of the poorest nations in the world. And it's that way because it suffered under communism from 1975 until, I think there's still reflections of that now, but when I was there was still heavy communist influence in Madagascar. And the people there are some of the most wonderful people you'll ever meet. I was invited into people's home, and they literally had nothing. But they would put together this almost a feast and spend probably, I don't know, compared to their regular budget, it's probably 2 weeks worth of food outlay to put this on because they wanted us to see them in the best light. And it made me feel the national feeling. They were proud of who they were, and they were proud to have you in their home. But they suffered under oppression. In America, no matter what anyone says, we don't have total equality. There are still problems. There are still problems that have to do with race, gender, a host of other issues. But ultimately, we're on the right track in ways that other countries aren't. And I think right now you see Russia kind of going back. They're sliding back towards communism. So the world is an uneasy place. It has been for the entire time of my life, all of my adulthood. But in America, we enjoy freedoms that we could never enjoy. We didn't have the power as a nation. But we can still be the same towards our country. We can still be proud of our country, our nation, where we came from, how we got here, what we want America to be, even if we're not rich. And I've seen it. Like in Jamaica, another very poor country, not on the scale of Madagascar, but still, a lot of people don't have shoes. I mean, it's a poor place to live in. Yet there's just proud Jamaicans.
Yeah, my wife wants to move there next week. The last time we were there, she said, "No, we're just staying." That's it.
I said one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. National pride, local pride. We've got some great things here in Las Vegas. We've got our university. Now we have the Golden Knights. Got the Raiders coming on. And
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. Wrong shot. No. So we've got a sense of. Now I've been in Las Vegas many years. Been here many years yourself.
No, not compared to you.
Yeah, I've been here a long time. Yeah, but speak to the people about the sense of pride in what you've seen in Las Vegas. You've seen a side of Las Vegas that many of us have never seen, from a perspective that many of us have never seen. And I think sometimes we take it for granted what we actually do have here in Las Vegas. Can you speak to what you see as an opportunity as a sheriff coming in? What kind of opportunity there actually is here in Las Vegas that maybe some of us don't actually see?
Well, there's opportunity. There's huge growth going on. And whether you like the fact that the Raiders are coming, there's a lot.
Sorry.
Yeah. There's a lot going on. But let's get back to the children. Yeah. I hear all the time we talk about where we are. I'm not going to say it, please don't. Yeah. But where we are on that national list for education. I got news for you. Young kids don't know. And they think it's great. I have a child in the school district here. I have a grandchild in the school district here. They're getting a wonderful education from the wonderful teachers. We have problems in the school district, but we can be proud of our children, and we can be proud of the accomplishments they make. Brilliant kids. We have a bright future here. I know that we go off on these tangents about the school district has to rank higher so that people will bring their company here so they know their children will be educated well. And surely that's a point in the argument. But let's not always harp on the negative. There's great teachers in the Clark County School District. There are wonderful administrators over there. If we had to sit down and talk politics, we might find some ways to break it up or keep it together, or whatever that may be, whatever it should look like. But I would like people in Clark County to really reflect on the fact that it really is a good place to live. As a sheriff's candidate, it's my job to go out and talk about murder rate, and talk about gangs and this and that. But it's difficult for me to criticize things like that when I'm talking about my community. Because what I really want to do is sit down with people and change that you want. And what's odd about this, I get in these interviews and I don't want to capitalize the discussion. But I'm the candidate, and I'm expected to know these things and tell you what it is that I feel and how things I think should be changed. But the thing I think should be changed the most, in my opinion, is what do you want to change? What do you want to see from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department? A great organization. And let's take advantage of this opportunity that's coming forward. And we can use the influx of capital that comes from making a stadium and all of the other tourism opportunities going on. Let's capitalize on it, but let's use some of that to invest in our future. Make the schools better.
Tim, we've been
not running for region.
Yeah. There's still open spots. We've just got a couple minutes left, Tim. Las Vegas, diverse place, and Las Vegas has got a bright future. With the last couple of minutes we've got here, I think we've given people a pretty good thumbnail sketch of who you are as a person. But just speak to the people from your heart. What would you like to bring to Las Vegas? What kind of vision do you have for Las Vegas? And very briefly, because we've just got a few minutes, and I don't know if we have any more questions, but just got a couple minutes left. What kind of things, what kind of change would you like to see coming to Las Vegas? And for what? And why? Why do you think that is one of the biggest driving things for us?
I think the best way for me to put it is explain to you what I think, or what my philosophy is on the office of sheriff. Sheriff of Clark County, as I said earlier, is the sheriff of the whole county. You have one sheriff, it doesn't matter where you live in the county, the sheriff is your sheriff. And as a leader on an organizational scale, with an organization that has almost 6,000 employees, I see my job as sheriff as being the organizational drive. I set priorities for where it is we want to go, what we want our culture to reflect, what we want the public to see the Metropolitan Police Department as. In an inner core managerial perspective, I know that I'll work with 5 to 10 people, which is generally your span of control when you're a supervisor, leader. Those are 2 different kinds of organizational management, but the sheriff has to have both. What I would like to bring is leadership on issues other than just being the boss of the metro. Because the sheriff, people tell me, they ask me, can I vote for you? I live in North Las Vegas, or I live in Henderson. Yes, you can. But they'll tell me, no, I can't. They'll argue with me. And I don't know how much time we have left, but what I really want to do is I want to bring leadership that reflects the values of Las Vegas, the values we as parents and grandparents have. Making this as safe a place as we can make it, make you feel safe, make you feel your rights are protected, not to worry whether your sheriff is going to oppose you on your civil rights of any kind, whether it's the First Amendment or the 10th Amendment, or any other aspect of constitutional rights. That is just as much a responsibility of a police officer as it is to make an arrest. Protecting a person's rights is just as valuable as catching the criminal. When we do those together, it functions well, and we have a safer community. And that's what I want to bring. I want to bring a safer community. I want to bring more trust. I want to bring transparency and accountability to Metro that the public doesn't question as much. I'll be out there. I'll be available at least every month for a public meeting for my entire term of office, because I believe we have to be partners in this to make it work.
And well, in order for you to get in office, you're going to need some cash though. So people need to get. If people want to get a hold of because we're out of time. I believe time flies so quick here. People want to get a hold of you. Tim, how would they get a hold of you?
BedwellForSheriff.com is my website. You can find me, Tim Bedwell, on Twitter, Tim Bedwell everywhere. I'm really easy to find. The hardest thing I have, I've got 42 years of public service. It's tough for me to ask people for money.
Sure.
But I'm not asking for
my
money.
wife's over here going, don't be.
I'm asking.
She says, ask for cash. Right?
Yeah. The campaign is for you.
Yeah.
And so if you support me, and one other, I got to throw this out. June 12th is our primary. I'm in a nonpartisan race. It may not even be on the ballot in November if one of us gets more than 50% of the vote. So please, June 1st or June 12th, you can vote in early, which starts the 27th. May 27th, or the voting starts. Please come out. in the primary, whoever it is you want to vote for. I'm Tim Bedwell for sheriff.
Sure. So Bedwell for sheriff.
BedwellforSheriff.com.
Okay. Well, folks, once again, this has been this week with the NRBC. Been your host, Sherman Ray. We've had Tim Bedwell here today, folks. If you'd like to get a hold of him, BedwellforSheriff.com. Tim, once again, I want to thank you so much for being in the studio today. Michelle, I want to thank you for coming here also. You've been really helping us with the phone here. If we missed your question, folks, we're going to stick around for just a minute after the show, and then Tim will answer, might be able to answer one of the questions. But we will be with you again tomorrow. We'll be on again tomorrow with another guest. This has been crazy, folks. We've got a lot of stuff going on, as far as candidates. But Tim wants you to know, BedwellforSheriff.com. So thanks again once again, folks. This has been Sherman Ray, Nevada Republican Black Caucus. We'll talk to you soon.